everybody. Welcome to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, powered by NHL Sense Arena. It's a mailbag episode where we had a couple people email in some really important topics. One, we have a parent whose kid is traveling 3 hours a day, or 3 hours of practice day, I should say, to play for a team, and he wanted to know that there's a local team in town. Should he have his kid play for that team? We know it's a common issue in hockey, incredible amounts of travel when there's lots of organizations potentially available. So we have a very lively discussion about that. And the second email we got is about a young man who's playing for a team where the coach is called Mr. Discipline. The coach basically from the emailer doesn't follow his own rules, and he wanted our thoughts on how he should deal with that. And as you can imagine, we had another wonderful conversation on that one. So it's a mailbag episode. Make sure you listen to that. And make sure you check out our sponsor, NHL Sense Arena. You get $50 off an annual subscription if you head over to their website, sensearena.com. It is a wonderful platform for your kids to practice hockey off the ice in a virtual reality environment. And what they have done is allowed you to make sure that you're practicing some of the things that coaches can't get to on the ice. Vision, scanning. If you're a goalie, obviously there's an entire goaltending platform on there for you to work on your glove, your blocker, to warm up for games. I know a lot of goalies from the NHL level down that use this to warm up for games. But it's a really great platform, and it is a really immersive platform. I have used it myself. You're going to see me using it across our channels here soon. It's an exciting technology in a way to advance your training as a hockey player. So check that out. Again, $50 off an annual subscription, sensearena.com. Pick the hockey player side of it or the hockey goalie side of it. You'll be right in. But let's get right into this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey, powered by Sense Arena, right now. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, powered by NHL Sense Arena. I'm Lee Elias, and I'm joined by my favorite line mates in the world. There really are not any better. I don't know if I'm the center, or Mike, maybe you'd probably be the center, and Christie would be the wing. I'd be a wing. But I'm with my favorite line mates, Mike Benelli and Christie Cashy out of Burns. And today...
See, I always thought it was the rose between the two thorns, but what do I know? So I think I would be the center.
You can be the center. You know what, Christie, you're the center, the head coach.
I'm just saying.
You know what? You're the player coach on the team. All right? So you're playing center. You're taking the face-offs. And Mike, you're coming in. We're going to get that puck, okay? And we're going to go down there and score. Enough of the hockey metaphors now. Friends, today's episode is a mailbag.
Can't use them here. Where can you use them, I guess, right?
That's very fair, right? We've gotten a lot of emails over the last few weeks and months, actually, from all of you out there in hockey land, asking some really great questions about the game and situations that your kids are in. So we're going to answer at least one of those emails today. So I'm going to read the email, and then we're going to discuss it. And these are really great questions, or I should say thought-provoking questions that are going to get us going. So, Christie, Mike, are you ready for the first email?
Let's dive in.
Let's dive in. I love it. All right. So this one's from Chris. His kid is a 2012, and he says, my son is on a high-level team this year. However, the commute is very difficult. The coach is great, the team is great, and he loves it. However, he is feeling the pressure and stress of being in the car for more than 3 hours daily to practice back and forth. I know there's a lot of people listening that can relate to that. Each commute is at least an hour and a half each way. Locally, there is a great coach who has a high IQ style of coaching, but the team is nowhere near as good as his current team. He skates with the local coach and really likes that coach, but he knows the team is not up to the level he's been playing at, and he's nervous that his game might suffer by playing with and against lesser competition. If we stay local, he would be able to do multiple skates a week instead of being in the car and be able to balance schoolwork as well. What do you think would be best for my player in this position? It's a really great question. Who wants to dive
I think you really got to know your kid. I mean, it depends on your kid. All right, I can go two ways here.
Right.
Now, when Sophia decided she wanted to play at a higher level, which meant we had to go to the AAA team, more rides, longer rides in the car, farther to travel for games, farther practices, and all that. But she could handle it. She was good at it. It wasn't stressful for her. She really adapted well and learned how to manage her time. With the rule, and now my husband's chiming in, he's here with us, guys. His rule was, if your grades start to suffer, if your schoolwork, if you start failing because of hockey, done.
Yeah.
You're done. If it puts too much stress on you and you're not doing a great job managing that stress, hockey is done. You're done. Now, she was very good at it, and it actually helped her in college balance because she, it was like having two jobs, obviously, when you're playing hockey and going to college and managing all that and working. So she was really good at that because she had that life experience of figuring out how to do it. If your kid isn't good at that, then I wouldn't put all that extra stress on them and I wouldn't allow their grades to suffer for it. So it really depends on your kid. That's my answer.
I think it's
Yeah,
really important. Mike, I sure agree that all three of us would agree that, look, the education is the primary thing. And I think even the parent writing, it's like if the school grades are going down, this is an easy decision, right? The education has to come first. So I think we should just at least set that standard from the three
Right.
of us.
That's the high bar.
Yeah.
That's the bar.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Can you manage school and this other activity, whether it's tennis or equestrian or high level swimming or
Archery,
hockey, right? I mean, whatever it is, whatever I mean, I think hockey always gets a bad rap that it's like, oh my God, if you play hockey, you're giving up. I go, listen, any sport
Yeah.
where you need to dedicate your time, you probably are going to have to travel somewhere, or you're going to have to make some kind of sacrifice by leaving, a day or two early to go to different tournaments. I mean, so I'm not a big fan of the hockey getting the bad rap all the time because I've seen it in every sport where I am. Now, that being said, I think at 12, there's a really so I've wavered on this a lot because I've seen it because of where we are in the Northeast and specifically where I am in like the tri-state. We call it the tri-state. Nobody else can really say tri-state because it's just New York, right? So we have New York, Connecticut, and you have Jersey, and there's a lot of hockey. I mean, there's a lot of hundreds and hundreds of teams. So I always say, can you look into the future a little bit and say, well, where is my player going to be in 4 years anyway? Like, who is the player? Could that player play on the lesser team where they're a bigger fish, where they're getting a lot more ice time? Because if the end game is to play at a higher level, quote unquote, but the higher level might be your local team, then be in that area quicker. I don't know. That's the way I look at it. I look at it as be the best player. Listen, you've got to be the best player on that team by far before you need to say, I need to go to another program an hour and a half away. That's how I see it. I mean, if you're going to go to another program because the team is better an hour and a half away and 3 hours a night, and you're a third line player, or you're not getting, this is the debate I have with mom and dads all the time. Like, well, my kid didn't make the top team, so we're leaving to go to this other team. Yeah, but what do you do? What are you getting from the other team? Like, are you getting better? No.
Right.
So you're following. So what you're doing is you're not changing the path. You're not changing the system. You're just following along like everyone else, like a sheep. Like you just and then you wonder why you're not catching up. So if you have a chance to go to this nice coach, good hockey IQ, ton of ice, take those 3 hour resources. I mean, you're probably spending, $80, $90 in gas a day, it sounds like to me. So go take those resources, put them into other things, put them into off ice development.
Get an NHL Sense Arena. No, I'm sorry, I had to say it. It was sitting there for me there.
Put them
Go ahead, Mike.
put them into the virtual reality. Buy a shooting board. Like there's so many things you can do with that 3 hours.
Right.
Outside of running to another rink an hour and a half away to get no more than what you're getting where you're at. Now, if it means you get an extra A on your jersey, if it means, I don't know, I don't see any upside to it personally. Like I look at it, I go, wow, how do we make these decisions, and how do we constantly allow teams to pick kids, and you have to go past 9, 10 different other teams that you couldn't pick either. Like, so I don't know. I'm always stay local, be the best player in your community first, be at a place where your own coach is like, listen, you gotta get out of here, buddy. Like, this is just not helping you. Because I truly believe if you're in that community, it's a funny thing about hockey. Once you stay, other kids will stay. And then like I joke around all the time where I see people here. I'm like, if all 6 of you people that hated the local program stayed, you'd be the best program. Like 6 of you, and we're in 6 different, like where I am. You're at the Hitmen, you're at the Avalanche, you're at Mid Fairfield, you're at CJR. They're all from the same town. I go, if you all stayed in this town, you'd be better than the teams you're leaving to go play for. So
Wow.
what the hell are you doing? Like, so, and that's how I look at it all the time. I'm just, I just get to the best place you can be for your kid's mental health, your mental health, and just then he can go nuts. You want to go to the rink? It's 5 minutes away. Go every day. You want to go? You want to be that player? 5 minutes away. I'll bring you every single day.
Right.
here-
And I
here's a-
guarantee you, he's going to get a lot of ice time, and you're
Yeah.
going to see his creativity out there soar, which is something that coaches always look for. Just how creative is that player, and how much ice time is there, and he's going to build his hockey IQ. You're going to see that.
I mean, what's the only
I don't
skill
think-
you're getting by traveling now? I mean, to be a highway
Right.
superintendent or something someday? I mean, like, what are you gaining by being in the car
Yeah.
an hour and a
Yeah.
half? I don't
Yeah.
know.
The only other thing is I can say is it did, for Sophia's case anyway, it was good for her because it did build that good foundation of learning how to balance
Mhm.
everything. So she got great experience by being on a travel team.
Well,
It wasn't that far. I wasn't 3 hours away though.
well,
We
and,
did
and,
have
only-
to
and
travel
understanding
farther for the games.
and understanding where you are too, Christy. A lot, like you're in a rural community. I mean, you're
Right.
not in a place where there's 17 teams that you can choose from.
Correct. No,
So
there's
so
not,
depending
especially
on
with girls. Yeah.
yeah, well, and then that even makes it harder, right? So depending
Right.
on where you're from, it just makes it harder. But like I'm just speaking from my perspective, where we are in
Right.
New York and Fairfield County and Westchester and Suffolk, and like there's zero reason to go an hour and a half
Yeah.
to go to a team,
Yeah.
unless of course the other 6 kids on your team went there. I don't know, but
Right.
there's not a lot of reasons at 12 years old to do that. In my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But if you live in
Yeah,
Arizona, or if
especially if
you're,
your kid is stressing,
well, that's it.
why,
And
why
I
do you
think
want to do that to your kid?
Well, I'll tell you a few things that I wrote back to this person. One is that as an actionable item, because in the way the email is written, it sounds like, well, if the kid is stressing, that, I mean, you kind of have your answer
Yeah.
there a little bit.
Red flag right there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I also said, listen, things you can do, parents, everybody listening, things you can do when you have to make a tough decision. And this is one that actually my father used to do with me, and it's so effective. And it kind of shows you the answer pretty quickly. Write a list of positive and negatives of both places. Even just that exercise, working through it, you're gonna know most of the time rather quickly what the right decision is, or what I shouldn't say the right, which way you want to lean. Okay. And someone goes, what if it's a tie? Then you pick the easier one, right, for yourself, if you need to. So I think that's one actionable item. Writing notes here, guys. There's a higher thing here, that we've talked about on the show before, but I almost want to ask you guys if we can even find a percentage balance. But I've always said this: your kids succeeding, I think there is so much more on their drive to succeed than where they're playing. Now, look, I'm not saying someone can have a massive drive, be playing at a very low level, and really get far in the game. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if your kid is extremely passionate about this game, and wants to practice, no matter where they're playing, and that's what I'm trying to say, is that whether you're an hour and a half away or 5 minutes away, is that kid shooting, practicing all the time? Because to me, that's what becomes the differentiator later on, right?
Right.
All the guys I played with, and women, at a high level, we all had that in common, right? It was,
Mhm.
oh no, after school I would just shoot, and then I'd go to the rink, and it was actually kind of cool to meet other people like that eventually. Because like when I was growing up, I was actually ostracized for that a bit, which I didn't care about. But like you realize, oh wow, everyone's working hard like this at the highest levels. So I wonder, and you guys have been through it. Again, Christy, your daughter played Division I. Mike, you see all this. I'm going to pose this question: how much of it, what percentage of it, is the team and the competition versus the kid's personal drive? Because I'll say this too: if you don't have that drive, you're already off the chart, right? You're just not going to make it, right? And when I
Right.
say make it, I just meant to a high level. I'm not talking pro or anything.
Right. 100% it's the kid. We just did the interview with Cam Atkinson's parents. They had 5
Right.
boys, right? All of
Right.
them played hockey, but it was the one who had the drive and the passion. And they took note. Boy, this
Right.
kid's different. He really wants more.
Exact
Okay,
words.
let's
Yeah.
let's go ahead and invest a little bit more with
Yeah.
him, because He wants it. He's hungry for it. We're not driving it. He is.
Right.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, and
definitely
that's a red
kids.
that's a red flag. If you if you have to drive your son or daughter an hour and a half to a place where they're motivated to play, or you think they're motivated to
That's
play,
good. That's
and
good.
then it's probably your time to say, oh, let's see what happens if he's just sitting at home. Like,
Yeah.
now, again, there's another side of this too, where I just think, if you're around low performing people, you become a low performer. I just believe that. Like, it's very hard, especially in our kids' era, where it's so easy to do other things digitally, and not and for us to make it easy for them to do things where they don't have to be active. It's really easy. I can see how easy it would be, for a kid just to say, I'd rather just stay home and do it, just kind of hang out with the friends that aren't doing anything, because more and more society is not doing anything with their kids. So
Mhm.
that's how I see it. Like, so if you need to bring your kids somewhere where there's a whole bunch of other high performing kids, well, we all think they're high performing kids
Mhm.
because they're all passionate and they all kind of sharpen each other, then okay, I'll make a pretty good argument. But if you're in a community that has 6 or 7 or 8 kids, then you can then take those resources and say, well, I know the team, like this dad, I know the team has 15 kids on it. They're not very good. The level's so much lower. But you're telling me that there aren't 5 kids on that team that want to get better? So drive
Mhm.
those 5
Right.
kids.
Right.
Right.
Do
And
more
the
with those
coach
5 kids.
seems really happy with the coach's attitude and his knowledge of
Wait, and
hockey
the kid
too.
knows the
So
coach.
if you're
Kid
confident in
already,
the
yeah.
coach,
Kid trains with
yeah,
the
Yeah,
coach
so if he
already.
feels comfortable with the
Yeah.
coach, then if I'm
yeah,
that parent, I'd be like, listen, I really want to stay here. My kid loves
yeah,
you. My kid loves being here. How can
right,
I help get better kids here?
exactly.
Right.
And
Hmm.
then how can I build people around my needs? Because I think that other parents have the same needs as me. And
Right,
all the parents out there listening, you know where all these people are traveling. There's no
yeah,
secret. Just go on Facebook and say, oh, so and so's here, so and so's there, so and so's there. And you see them all in church on Sunday. So then you're sitting there going, well, how are you all going here? Like,
Right.
we're all living here. So
right,
just look in your community and say, how can I make my community the best community, and my team and my level, eh, you know, and instead of the easy out, which is fill up the car and drive away. And I
right,
think that's, again, not everybody can do that. Maybe not everybody has the resources for doing that. But if you care about your own sanity, try it, figure it
yeah,
out, look at it and say, well, what can I do to make my community team better, as opposed to just, packing up and,
It's a
buying
great point,
a
Mike.
jersey.
It's
right.
a really
And
great point.
also be careful. Like, let's say you're in that environment, you're of the mindset that this is better for my kid. He's going to be around a bunch of kids who motivate him or her. And if they're playing up, he's going to play up too. Great. But if you have to take your kid kicking and screaming to this rink and these practices and they walk out of there with their head down, don't think that all of a sudden magically they're going to, some sort of flame is going to be lit and they're just going to become this other hockey player. You got to watch your kid. You got to look for those signs. And if you don't see them being inspired and getting passionate, being around these kids, that's not the right program for them.
Yeah.
Nothing magic is going to happen. They're not going to magically rub off on your kid if they're not motivated
You're
themselves.
The percentage of quitting and giving up is so much higher than the percentage of being lit and fired up and finding motivation. Like, it's so hard for an individual to be inspired to be that individual. We would see the viral video going around Wayne Gretzky, like, with the whole, like, moms would always ask me, like, what would you recommend my kid do to work, to find a way to get better? Go, listen, I didn't work. I just played. Like, I
Right.
loved
I loved it.
playing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to play, and it's
Yeah.
an overriding theme in every successful person. They
Mhm.
love what they're doing. We heard it from
Right.
Mr. Atkinson. You have to love what you're doing, and if you love getting in the car and flunking out of school and not eating properly, and
Oh, yeah.
sucking down Chipotle every weekend because you're traveling all over the world, and it works for you, great. You know what? If it works for you, it works for you. But the minute there's a chink in the but the likelihood of falling off when we all
Mm.
invest, think about the investment you're making, 10, 12, 13, 14 years. And then at 13, 14 years old, your kid goes, I hate, like,
Yeah,
literally,
I'm
if I
done.
was able to drive, I would not drive. Okay, so if you're not going to drive, why am I driving? So what do you want to do? What brings passion in your life? And if being
Right.
local is passionate, great. I'd rather have a passionate
Mhm.
kid that's playing at a low level than
Yeah.
a dead-eyed kid playing on an elite team, sitting on the bench, like waiting for this game to end.
Right. I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right,
Uh,
we solved the problem.
we did. You know, there was one more quote I was going to share.
We're like the Dear Abbeys of hockey. I love this.
I love that
love
we've
this.
reached that status in the podcasting, broadcasting world. You know, Mike, you just reminded
Okay,
me.
next.
But the hard part though, Chrissy, we haven't solved the problem because 90% of the people will be like, yeah, for that kid, yes. For that one kid I know on that team, yeah, that dad should be doing that. That's not my kid though. My kid is the one that is going to make it. And
Right.
we all
Yeah,
think
well,
that. Like everybody thinks
they'll
their kid is the one that's going to make it
You know,
through.
Mike, I'm not even
find
focused
out.
on my
They'll
kid
find out.
making it. That's the thing is that I don't even focus on that. You know, I was going to say this, like mark the date. We're recording this on January 15th. It was just a few days ago. I had the first conversation of the year of, well, you know, this other organization says he'll make this team and he could be on this team and not that team. And it's, you know, Lee, what do you think? And you know, I get that all the time at this year. You know, parents start to say, well, where else can my kid go? And
Right,
look,
January they did the
yeah,
tryout season.
yeah, and again, sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. And it always comes down to me is, well, where does your kid want to be? Where's your kid's friends? Like again, I'm in the squirt world right now. You know, what kind of coaching is there? Do you think he'll get better? Does he want to do this? Does she want to do this? You know, you got to ask great questions if you want to get great answers. Mike, you reminded me a minute ago with that Wayne Gretzky quote that, you know, to keep it even more time and date. Connor McDavid's mother has that quote about Connor being very upset and not understanding why all his friends just wanted to play video games when all he wanted to do was practice. And the quote is like, she had to explain to him, well, Connor, you're a little bit different than other kids, right? I mean, they knew then that he was obsessed. And again, parents listening, there is a difference between obsession. There's a difference between obsession and being interested, right? And really loving something. Like there's levels to this, right? And I'm going to say this, you cannot put that in your kid. They have to develop it. And here's the other thing about it. Some of them might develop it at 9. Some of them might develop it at 15, right? You don't know. Or here's another one. Some of them might have it at 9 and not at 15, right? Ryan Whitney recently said, and he's 100% right. He goes, I know your 9-year-old is obsessed with hockey, but you know, the nightlife and dating has not come into his life yet or her life yet. You know, you have to wait until after that happens. All right, after puberty happens, then you'll have a better idea. When some of these, you know, quote unquote distractions, I mean, I just call it life, come into the play, then you'll know. It's at 8, it's easy to be obsessed with something, right? You don't know the world yet. So I think that's important. The other thing too, with this specific situation is, you know, I said that the positives and negatives. You also can look at the opportunities, right? So he had said in the email, well, we'll get a few hours back a week. We'll get more ice time. Christie, you alluded to that. I mean, that's pretty valuable stuff. All right,
That is
more
very
ice time.
valuable.
All right.
Mhm.
Also, if it's a team where you feel that your child's going to be one of the better players, well, this is a massive opportunity to be a leader on that team and learn that side of the game, which is something that we don't do enough of, right? I think
Right.
C's and A's are thrown around as bargaining chips nowadays. And I've always said you don't need a C or an A to be a leader, right? And Mike, to your point, right? If you're elevating the team and you have a drive and you know this coach, then you should be having that conversation of, listen, I want to set a higher standard for this organization and this team. I want to be that guy. I want to be that kid. Or I don't want that responsibility. I just want to skate and play. And again, these are questions you have to ask your kid. I think as parents and coaches sometimes, as adults, I'll just say that, it's very easy for us to walk into a situation and say, hey, look, this is what I think is best for you.
Right.
All right. And I mean, that's what parenting is.
Right,
but,
and
yeah,
the funny thing is that the parents that feel they need to leave because their kids are you know they're too good for that organization are
yeah,
usually the parents that have the best following. Like people actually like it's so odd to me. It's so odd to me that a parent with a really good hockey player, like parents think that they're a really good hockey person. Like, ooh, let's take advice from that guy because his kid's a great player. That guy's a jackass. He just
yeah.
has his kid's just really good. Like it has nothing to do with his hockey knowledge or hers. It's just the kid's really good. So you got to be careful. Don't follow that person all the time. But if you're the person that is being followed, you have a very strong possibility that you can waiver people's decisions on coming and staying. And so if you're saying, listen, we're all talking about going everywhere and we all see each other at all the other tryouts. Again, if we just stay together,
Right.
we're going to have a team here. But it takes conversation, and it takes a vision, and it takes a planning. It takes somebody saying, do you know what I could do with you if I had you for 3 years in a row instead of 6 months cut, 6 months cut, 6 months cut?
Right.
Or change. If you give me 3 years, imagine what you could do with that player and the game plan you could give that organization for those players to be there. Like, I used to have when I was coaching youth hockey in the programs that I would have, we always had these like almost like 2-year windows. Like if you made the team, our obligation to you was you didn't get cut for 2 years. Like we're
Love
picking
it.
you now. You don't have to go look for a tryout somewhere. Now, if you chose to, because you think we stink and we don't know what we're doing, that's fine. But our obligation is to you. You're going to be with us. I want you for 24 months, not 6. And it's amazing what you can do with a player and how well you get to know, what players can do.
I mean, Mike, I'll
Yeah,
add on to
especially
that.
if they all stay together and you see
Yeah.
that chemistry. There's such a difference. You know right away when you're at a game and you're watching them play, if these kids have been together for a long time, you see it. They know each other. They don't even have to look at each other. They know it instantly where to pass that puck. It's
Right.
it's
But this
it's
travel
so cool
hockey,
to watch.
this travel hockey world has ruined that. It's really
Yeah.
like
Well,
if USA Hockey is going to do 2-year bursts, 14U, 12U, 10U, then the obligation should be you make the 10U team. That means you're on that team for 2 years. Like that's why, like
Right.
we talk about, these are other conversations we have, right? But like that's why we talk about major minor hockey and making a team with year of birth so that you can stay with that team for 2 years and not have the pressure of getting a kid cut or not have the pressure you got to get rid of the dead wood and bring in a kid from an outside organization that somebody else developed, not you. Your job is to
Right.
develop kids in your organization.
well,
So,
yeah.
I just think there's so many different variables here that could now. But let's go back. I guess the situation is, I'm traveling an hour and a half both ways, and then it was funny. Our friends over at the hockey think tank there in Topher just came out with a little statistic from Sweden, right? That in a 60-minute practice, kids were getting 12 minutes in the U.S. of actual time, like
Yeah.
active time on ice. 12 minutes. So imagine now add that to this guy's commute, an hour and a half back, 2-3 hours. Then he gets on the ice and he gets 12 minutes of ice. 12 minutes of and I guarantee if I go on Live Barn right now, watch that practice, 12 minutes is probably it's a gift,
Yeah.
Wow.
and so I think it's
That's
like
pretty shocking.
Yeah, it's
well,
true
Wow.
though.
it's
12
just
minutes.
12 minutes in a 60-minute practice of
Oh
active
my
hockey
gosh.
play. So
Yeah.
imagine
Huh.
doing all of that, and then now stay at your local organization, figure out a place to get 60 minutes of ice, and then multiply that by 5 days a week, and then multiply that by what you could do for your kid off the ice.
Huh.
All of a sudden now you got a real development path.
Mm,
But
mm, mm.
again,
Huh.
people we do everything counterintuitive to the actual fact of how to develop a
Well,
kid.
Mike, here's another actionable item that I did one time that was very sobering for me. All right. And I'll tell you the exact situation. I was driving to a job at the time from North Jersey to Connecticut. So I was in the car a lot, and that's without traffic. Right.
Right.
And I remember that it was a really great opportunity, and I am really glad that I did it. But what actually got me to think about switching was I calculated, Christy, this is going to make you laugh, the percentage of my week, month, and year that I was spending in the car. Right.
Oh
And
gosh.
the number was shocking.
What was
Right.
it?
Oh, it was like 18%. It was like
Oof.
I did it like the hours I have awake and how often I'm in the car.
Uh-huh.
And it was just like, you know what, I don't want to do that anymore. Now, again, it was a great opportunity, like kind of equates to the situation. But when I felt like I got everything I needed out of that position, I was able to move right to someplace else.
Mhm.
But when you start realizing, hey, this is a majority of my time in the car.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
look, I did things in the car. I thought a lot in the car. But it's just like, wait, what could I do with that 18% of my time? You know what I'm
Hmm.
trying to say? I started thinking about that. It was a lot of time in the car. All right. Now, again, I would say this: it jump started my broadcasting career, so I don't regret doing it. But after a year or more of it, I started to think about my life, and I was in a relationship with a woman who would become my wife, and how much time am I not dedicating to that?
Right, and that's a literal job. That's not
Right.
12 years of hockey.
No, yeah,
That's a
I
literal
was
job.
getting paid. That's a good point too. I was getting paid to be there. So, and that's
No, but
I
it's a
wasn't
career.
paying.
It's a career
Yeah,
path. Like it's
right.
like something you do. Like, so listen,
Yeah.
you hear all the time, right? Guys that work in New York and they live in Ohio and they fly in and they
Yeah.
save
Yeah.
money on hotel or whatever. Like, it's like people do what you have to do to make a living.
Of
But
course.
with
Yeah.
12-year-old boys and girls, if it becomes I've got to do what I got to do to make a living, then I don't know. I just it's hard for me to differentiate between these teams. And I've said this a number of times, even this past weekend. Give me the 6 or 7 local teams that are all these great teams.
Yeah.
Put the sticks in the middle of the ice, jumble it up. I'll resort the teams. If they're all the same teams, they're all the
Well,
same
yeah.
teams. And
That's a good point.
so it's just a matter of a kid here or there. A superstar here, a superstar there, a great goalie here, a great goalie there. But at the end of the day, out of a group of 15 kids on each team, and you take 6 or 7 teams, they're all the same kids.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we all
I'll tell
know
you
it
this too,
too. The
Mike.
sad part is we all know it.
I'll say this to
Mhm.
transition this too, is that, we just had a tier 2 player in this area make Quebec, Pee Wee Quebec, right? And that shouldn't happen by the laws of tier 1, tier
Mhm.
2, AAA, right? It's just, he was in the right place. He was shining on his team. He went to the tryout and he made it, which kind of just proves that, like, he plays for a tier 2 organization, right? And it didn't matter. He had the talent, he had the drive, he had the will to make
Right.
it, right?
Mhm.
So and to your point, Mike, what if several of those tier 1 kids felt that way and they were on this team? I mean, it'd be unstoppable. But I actually think he shined more because he's in this level, right? So again, parents, look, I understand the draw of AAA, AA, tier 1, tier 2, at least in this area. I know it's different in Minnesota and other places around the country who listen to this, but that cannot be the only decision maker, right? We've talked about this in other episodes. Well, my kid plays AAA. Like
Right.
that
Mhm.
my kid loves me. Like, you know what I mean? That's my gauge
Yeah.
for success here, right?
Right.
And again, to transition out of this, Mike, you were talking about organizations and how there's turnover, and Christie, you did too, about how you had different kids every year, and then the chemistry that develops when you have kids together for years.
Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you, as a
It's
team builder,
fantastic.
all right,
Mhm.
as a team builder, and I get a lot of work with teams now that, oh, we got a lot of new kids this year. We got a lot of new kids this year, and I end up, I enjoy it, but I end up giving kind of the same foundational team building lessons a lot, right? And don't get me wrong, they're very powerful. I take a lot of love in the work that I do, but I always say to these organizations, you should see what I can do with a team that's been together for 3 years. And these kids really know each other and they really believe in each other. That is a totally different set of lessons. And it is a much higher level of cohesiveness than having to get mold a clay together for the first time. I want to say it again. I love all of it, but it's like I do the initial lessons 80% of the time, and the real powerful stuff comes when a team is already somewhat gelled, right? So that's just something to think about. You play with the same kid, you play with the same line mate for 2 or 3 seasons, and you get that chemistry. I don't even know how to explain that when you know
Yeah.
where they are without
It's
looking.
magical.
It
Yeah.
really, that's the
It's
right
pretty
word. It is
magical.
Yeah, but
My
magical.
that's
my
why.
son's bantam team was like, I guess those boys had been together for a couple years. I know we went to Lake Placid for a tournament, and people word had spread. You got to see these boys play, and we had people from other teams come and watch the game
Right.
because our boys were just phenomenal. They were
Right.
just amazing because
Yeah.
they'd been together since they were
It's
Pee-wee.
a
Well,
totally
no,
different type
what
of
was it?
hockey.
I forget what they call them now. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that
Yeah.
chemistry was just something that a lot of people hadn't seen because, yeah, and they cheered each other on. It was just such a great magical experience. I'll always remember that team. And that was because they had been together for a few years. Nobody went looking for a better opportunity
No,
because they
no.
knew what they had was
These were
really
your
special.
family. This was your family,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
and
Well,
and
it
again,
was
it's
great.
also why,
yeah.
we're all envious of the Minnesota community model, right? Because it follows Finnish and
Yeah.
Swedish
Right.
hockey models, which is like
Mhm.
the gold standard. Like, you look like, and then you
Mhm.
wonder, like, why doesn't everybody do that though? Like,
Yeah,
everybody, oh my God, I wish you were in Minnesota. Yeah, you can be. Like, I'm in New York. There's more
right.
kids in the Bronx. There's more kids in the Bronx in the whole state of Minnesota, just in the Bronx. Like, and I'm like, well, why wouldn't you, like, if you really wanted to grow hockey and you really wanted to be great and you're in this community of there's 90 kids in your community, then make all those 90 kids better. I'm going through the same thing in the lacrosse program I'm involved in and run, that, like everybody's like, oh my God, if this kid's too good, I got, we have 6 kids that are fractured that have to go to all these other, travel level lacrosse. I'm like, it's a field and a ball. I said,
Right.
what the hell are you talking about? Like, you don't have to go anywhere. The same crappy kids live next door than the kids you're traveling to New Jersey to play. Like, what's the difference? Like, just find a way to have fun, high performance practices. And when I say, like, I do a lot of work, like I say, with the junior ranger kids, right? These are not high performers. These are beginner hockey players, but we run high performance practices. Like, I challenge anybody in our listening audience. You take one of my junior ranger practices, my high performance practice, and put it with any team, any AAA team up to the age of 18, it will be a competitive, fun, high performance environment for those kids. Does it look like that with these 6 and 7-year-old beginners? No, but it's still a high performance environment. It's fun. It's energized. It's developmentally age appropriate. And I think that's where we can all do a better job as organizations. So if you're a parent that's traveling 3 hours a day to go find the promised land, I can tell you right now, the promised land is right in your back door. You just have to look for it.
Yeah, it's in Minnesota.
Well said. Well said.
Or move to Minnesota.
Yeah, move to Minnesota. Look, I'll say this. I'll say this in closing. There's a reason the Minnesota High School Championship sells out. Both of the championships sell out the Xcel Energy Center yearly. 20,000 people watching a high school game. You could not get that for the Tier 1 AAA midget championship on your life, right?
No.
And it's because these kids go to these schools, they grow up in these neighborhoods, and then when you get to that championship, now you're literally representing your town, right? And you should see the hockey, right? Whether it's a AAA final or AA final, 20,000 people pay for these tickets. The semifinals are sold out. It's something to see. All right, listen.
Yeah, and the real fact is too, like, if you look, as good as that is,
Right.
as phenomenal as that is, how is it that at every NHL team doesn't have 6 Minnesotans on it? Like, so think about that. As good as
Good point.
crazy as that is, and as everyone plays hockey, then why isn't everyone on? So there is obviously, kids develop, right, and gifted players in any sport materialize from their communities. So just have fun with it, be passionate, be in a good place that's gonna foster your child's love for whatever sport they're in, and then all the other stuff just happens. It just does. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Are there circumstances where you got to push and prod a little bit and guide? Yes, but at the end of the day, the passion of the player drives their development in any sport at any time. And this has been forever true. We're just not figuring it out.
But this next one comes from Bo. All right. Bo says, this one's tough. We joined a 12-year-old team this season because the coach was known as Mr. Discipline. But for some reason, he does not enforce the rules that he sets this year. Examples are, he says to wear specific clothes for warm-ups, but when kids don't, nothing happens to them. Hotel curfew is broken. One kid ended up in the emergency room because he was playing knee hockey 2 hours after curfew and had to get stitches and still played the next day. A kid punched the other team's player after a whistle and was suspended by the referee, but the coach told him that it was a reasonable penalty. It seems like other parents support the coach when it comes to fighting, when I try my best to teach my kid that he should never throw a punch. He knows pushing and shoving is okay and part of the game, but punching is too far. Am I wrong and that these things are not okay, or is the coach right? I do not come from any hockey background. I would love to hear a show discussing these things and what is okay or not okay for the coach to do. Personally, I feel like the coach is trying to make the players jerks because he thinks you have to be or you cannot win games. Very interesting letter. And it's tough to discuss not knowing the coach, but if all of that stuff is happening and that coach is not keeping the players accountable, that is a problem. That coach is incorrect. If we literally take this letter for its word, coaches listening, I will say this as a team builder. The biggest threat to your team bond, your team cohesiveness, and your team being a team is you. It's not the parents. It's not the kids, it's the coach. It is your responsibility to be the standard of excellence and accountability when it comes to running a hockey team. So if you set the rules and you allow the rules to be broken and or you break the rules, you are damning that team. You really are, right? And that kid's going to end up driving an hour and a half to another rink to try and get on another team because of that accountability. To me, the life lessons are so much more valuable than the hockey lessons. And if you are teaching these kids that it's okay to break the rules and it's okay to not be accountable, you are hurting them so much further beyond hockey, right? So again, if this letter is to be taken literally, this is a scary situation.
Yeah, I agree. A, a lot of red flags going up with this coach. I wonder if there's something else going on here. I can't imagine an organization would allow that kind of a coach to continue being a coach. Because this doesn't just suddenly happen. He must have some kind of a pattern. I wonder, is he new? Has he been moving around to other organizations? Because that's usually a sign of a problem coach when you see him hopping around. And then I guess I would go to my organization and discuss it with them.
Yeah.
Hey, has anybody else complained about this coach? I'm concerned about some issues going on. I would hope the organization would listen and either have a talk with that coach, replace him, maybe put somebody else there for a while. Maybe the coach is going through some issues. I don't know. I'd have to investigate that a little further.
Yeah, I agree with that too, Christy. And again,
Yeah.
it's a little freaky, especially with the fighting. Keep in mind, this is 12 years
Yeah.
old, right? We're talking peewees here.
Fine.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, and you don't know, like it's all. Listen, I think these are hard, right? Because you have to have a better perspective of what's going on. Like number one is we've talked about this a million times on the podcast. Did you have a parent meeting at the beginning of the year? Was
Right.
there some standards set? Did you know ahead of time the coach is like, listen, we're going to be tough. We're going to let the kids go at it. We're going to let and then if you're a dad that signed off on that, then hey, you know what? Deal with it. This is if you signed off on the fact that was a tough coach,
Mr. Discipline.
Now,
Mr.
yeah, well,
Discipline.
and Mr. Discipline. So, and I think, well, and the other side, like I tell the coaches I work with all the time, like the more rules that you can enforce, then don't have them. Like just don't like
Right.
you got it. You like coaching and managing kids and parents and families and people, right? Is once you start boxing yourself in the corner, literally, like right, like if you throw a punch on this team, you're off the team, and the kid throws a punch, and you're like, okay, listen,
Well,
you can't do that. You can't do that. And and it was your kid, right? And then you go, "Ooh, now I'm really screwed." Like so, it's like, or if you're going to be late, and then you're the coach that's always late, or if if you're going to enforce like dress code, and everybody's got to be in dress code, but then 5 kids don't ever come in dress code, right? So then don't have those rules. I say this I bark at USA Hockey all the
or
time.
enforce them, Mike. You got to say that, or
enforce them, or
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
have consequences and stick to it. If the league has a rule that coaches need to wear helmets on the ice, then wear the damn helmets on the ice, or don't
Agreed.
coach.
Yeah.
I don't believe in helmets. Okay, then don't coach. So I that's fine, but I think it's the same thing with your coaches. So the number one thing I would say is, well, did you like if I was having that conversation with the parent, first thing I would say, well, when you signed up, did you know the coach? Yes. What was his reputation before? He's a disciplinarian. Well, did he allow fighting on his team last year? Oh yeah, those kids would go out in the locker room. I heard rumors. Okay, well then you get what you get, and you don't get upset. You just deal with it. But at the same time, you can still. This is great. This is a great chance to talk to your own child and be like, listen, we don't do this.
Right.
I don't find this acceptable. Protect yourself. And if there's an issue, we're going to go see the coach together and be like, listen, but make sure your kid's not the one setting the punches up. Like, make sure your kid's not the one causing the issues. And some of us get blinded by that. Like, not my child. My son is an angel. And I think, he never, he swears. No, like, I can't believe it. Like, so I think it's just like, just understand. And I don't want to throw any coaches under the bus because I don't know this coach personally. And I've never
none of us do. Yeah.
And just take it for what it is. If you're a disciplinarian coach, be a disciplinarian. I have no problem with it. I mean, listen, if you sign up for a guy who is a hard ass, or who wants to really give it, then that's if your son or daughter can deal with that and take it and likes it, even like, listen, I had coaches like the coaches that I liked growing up. I could never imagine my kids playing for. Like they were nuts. Like they were really, really
Yeah.
tough. Like just like, oh my God. And even me as a coach, like I could never have my 16-year-old play for Mike Benelli, the coach of 16-year-olds back in the day. Having
Yeah.
kids, you're going to skate until somebody pukes out here. If you have your tape on your shin pads wrong, get the hell off the ice and go home. Or if if your lace breaks, while you're tying it before a game, you're done. Get out. You weren't prepared. These are these are things that I grew up thinking, well, that's normal. Like that's like a real, that's a coach that has the room. But but again, now if you sign up for that, then know it, be it. Just embrace it and say, hey, listen, got to be prepared. You forgot your jersey, you're not playing. We're not going to help you. We're not going to help you overcome that. We're going to say, too bad, and now you move on. But as far as the physical stuff goes, and I hear that all the time. Like, oh, that coach is teaching that. I don't know. I like to see that. If a coach is teaching a player how to stick check somebody and punch them in the face without the ref seeing it, then I would probably bring that up and be
Good
like,
point.
listen, this is really hard for me to get behind. But research it a little bit and kind of figure out, what is that line and what's
Yeah, but would you
true.
go to the coach with those kinds of concerns if he's showing signs of, just kind of going off the rails? I
I
don't
think I
know.
would. I think I'd go to coach first, then I'd go to the
You
organization.
would.
I don't know.
I
I would. I mean, I'd be like, listen, coach, I just want to understand what the philosophy is here because I don't teach my child this, and I just need to know what the expectations are here. And if he says,
Yeah.
hey, Mike, you know what? You know what it's like to be a tough hockey player. You know how tough this sport is. We're trying to prepare these kids for battle. I'm like, okay, well, that's not my understanding. Like I didn't sign up for this. Like I didn't know this was part of the protocol. And then maybe it's a second, then it really does get elevated. I think it's, you never want the coach to find out, in my world, that you
Yeah.
went to the board first.
I agree with
It's
that.
hard.
Yeah.
It's because the thing is, a lot of the board members most likely will agree with the coach.
Mm.
Like that
Okay.
your inclination is always to support the person you hired than
Right.
than be the first inclination of throwing them under the bus.
Well, let me dive into it too. Christie, you're bringing up a great point, and so are you, Mike. Here's the other thing. I like some perspective on this. I've been in situations sometimes where parents are upset about something that I don't even realize. I don't even realize that they're upset. Right? It wasn't obvious to me. And if they go, and I've seen it, they go to the organization, and it kind of gets back to me sometimes. I'm not so mad, but it's like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. I wish, and I remember thinking, I wish someone would have told me that was a concern of theirs, because at least I could have addressed it. I might not agree with it. I didn't agree with it,
Right.
but I didn't know. Now, with that said, you're dealing with personalities here. I feel like I'm a
Right.
pretty approachable person when it comes to things
Yeah.
like that. Some coaches might tell you to F off and like don't tell me how to coach.
Exactly.
But if that
Right.
happens, then absolutely you have the choice to elevate it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like nobody anywhere wants to feel like someone's gone behind their back. And this is why I always talk about communication being the root of 10 problems, 10 out of 10 problems,
Mhm.
is that if you don't at least bring it up to the coach first, depending on their response, they might not even know
Right.
that you're upset about it. So like
If
like
the coach is approachable, fine.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Like I
Yeah.
know exactly what you're
But
thinking too. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen some coaches that you get even next to them and
Yeah.
they blow up. What are you doing? You're not even allowed to talk to me.
But
I'd rather
again,
you
let's
be
go back to
empowered. I'd rather you be empowered to be able to go to the board saying, look, I did try and speak to the coach, but they're
Right.
not speaking back. Like that's a much more
that's different.
reasonable
Yeah.
place than just, did you see what
Yeah.
this coach is doing? No,
And
look.
go back to
Yeah.
rule number one: know the organization you're signing up for. Like it just
That's true.
Yeah.
this is something you could have nipped in the bud in April.
Researched, yeah. Find
Hey,
out a little bit more. Yeah.
I'll also say this, that I have had parents, this is a funny one, but you're not on the bench, so you don't really hear what we're doing. Right. So, because I've had parents come up to
Mhm.
me and be like, well, no one's coached my kid tonight. And I'm like, I
Mm.
talked to your kid 5 times tonight about this
Okay.
exact thing that you're talking about,
Mhm.
and it's like, so everyone's got to take a step back and remember, like, you're not seeing everything that happens all the time. And it's
Mhm.
like, I'll play extreme devil's advocate on this one. That kid got in a fight, right, in a game. Maybe that kid did come back to the bench and the coach said that is absolutely unacceptable to be fighting like
True.
that. If you
Yeah.
ever do that again, I will bench you. I mean,
Right.
we don't know if
That
that
may have
happened.
happened. You don't
Right,
know.
right.
Yeah.
Parents, I promise you, we are coach. Well, I can't speak for every coach. The people on this show, we're coaching your kids. We're doing it. Like, I know we're doing it.
And there's always there's always so many, like I had a kid that it was funny. So one of my first games a couple of years ago, we had a couple of new players on the team. Like literally, this was like right after COVID, kids were picked, everybody was on, and this one kid's playing for me, and the ref gives him a penalty, and he gives him the bird, right? And the ref sees it, I see it, I'm like. And the ref's like, you got to control your kids. Like, I don't even know who this kid is. He's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
he literally, I didn't know I had no idea he would do this. He's been on my team for 3 days. Like, I have no
Right.
idea this is going to happen. So what do? I suspend him for 2 games. Like, the
Right.
ref didn't suspend him. And I'm
Right.
asking the ref, I'm like, shouldn't you kick him out of the game for that? Well, that's your responsibility, coach. I go, well, it's really our
I-
responsibility here. You're the one that got flipped off, not me. Like, I kind of
Right.
agree with the kid. So, but at the end of the day, this is unacceptable behavior. So this is an early season game. I have to set my standard.
Sure.
And the argument back to me from the parents and the kid was, well, the ref didn't do anything about that. I go, yeah, but the ref's standards and my standards don't have to be the same. My standard is for this team. And that's unacceptable. Did it happen again? Never happened again. And it
There you
never
go.
happened to anybody on the team again.
Yeah.
And and then the referee later on found out that I had done this, and they're like, "Oh, well, thanks for." I go, "Yeah, well, you got to do that too. I mean, you get just leave me, don't make me the bad guy all the time." But it depends on what your obligation is and what you think you are as a coach. Are you a teacher? Are you a mentor? Are you
Right.
developing these players long term? Are you just a mercenary where you're just trying to
Volunteer.
get the most out of your kids to win? Weekend tournament. You don't care what kind of person they are or what kind of person they become. If you don't care about those things, which are a lot of us that don't, right? Like a lot of coaches that just don't care about who the player becomes. They just care how the player plays for them that year.
Right.
And that's fine. That's fine. It is what it is. You signed up for it. But understand, like, I don't know this coach. Maybe he doesn't, like, he's like, yeah, I don't know, get into a fight. I don't care. I'm not going to see you anyway after April. Like, you're done. So it really just is. It depends on what team you're on and what your expectations, for your coach is.
It's tremendous,
Yeah.
tremendous
But
perspective.
if they set up rules in the beginning and
Right.
they're not following through, that's a problem. I think
Massive
you do
problem.
need to address it and go to the coach first. Say, how
Yeah.
come hey, when we had this parent meeting, you said you were going to discipline kids if this happens, and you're not. Why aren't you? I'm just curious.
Christy, they armed the parents with the ability to do that if they make the rules. You're right. So if a coach sets the rules and the coach or
Yeah.
someone breaks the rules and they don't follow through, now the parents are armed with
Yeah.
that.
Why not
Which
ask
is,
them?
yeah. Well, here's the thing. That's also a great way to keep yourself accountable as a coach, right? I
That's
think
right.
there's too much apprehension when it comes to, I got to talk to the coach about this. Look, outside the ridiculous, I don't have any problems with a parent correctly coming up to me with a concern. In fact, I'd rather you do it. Most of the time, I'm proactive in going to the parent if I have a concern about their kid. Like, look, this is what I'm seeing, and this is how I think I need to discipline your son or daughter. Do you have any advice on that? I don't necessarily say, is that okay? I just said, do you have any advice on that? And you know what? 9 times out of 10, they're like, please discipline my kid, right? But if they know it's
Oh, yeah.
happening,
Yeah.
and the difference is this: when they know it's happening, they turn to the other parents and go, "Oh no, coach talked to me about this. I'm so proud that he's disciplining my kid." But when you don't do it, I can't believe the coach is sitting my kid. He's sitting my kid because you don't know.
Right.
And again, one more thing I want to say, Mr. Discipline. I think we as a culture really need to redefine discipline. If you're 40 and up, you grew up in an era where discipline is punishment and discipline is knowing your role and shutting your mouth and doing this. And as a team builder, someone who's really studied discipline, that is part of it. But discipline is also waking up on time and having good, healthy habits and making sure that you are disciplined in your training and in your schoolwork and the discipline of being a great person, the discipline of being a hard worker. So when I hear Mr. Discipline, that's what you better be instilling in the players, right? No, hey, listen, what if you got up 10 minutes early? What if you got up an hour earlier to practice and you make that habit a healthy habit? That is another definition of discipline that I think we need to share. Because here's the truth: high performers, successful people, all of them extremely disciplined people, right? So again, I think that what you're dealing with in this letter, if I had to guess, Mike and Christy, I think you got a really old school coach that really loved hockey in the 80s and the 90s. when, you could have a bench clearing brawl and then that's hockey. And that is not hockey anymore. Whether you like that or not, the game is no longer like that. The game is based on speed and skill. And I'm hoping and praying to the hockey gods that hockey IQ starts to come back into this at some point. But the game is no longer played that way. So, he wrote in there about the toughness of hockey. Well, the toughness of hockey is being able to get punched or get hit and know how to respond correctly. I'll never tell a player not to defend themselves. Don't get me wrong, everybody listening. I'm not saying you should just take one. All right. But are you initiating that? Are you the problem? Are you the one who's being a problem on the ice? That's Mr. Discipline to me, right? Is teaching those life skills. So again, it's so hard to generalize here. We don't know this coach. We don't even know the person who wrote the letter, to be honest with you. So that's our general response to these before.
Good discussions, though.
Yeah.
That's good. I like this. I like to tackle these.
I love tackling. We should actually also say here, if you have a comment, if you have a thought, always send them to us, team@ourkidsplayhockey.com, or you can send us a voice message at Our Kids Play Hockey Facebook page or group, or if you know us, you can email it to us. We love doing episodes like this. All right, guys, let's end the episode on a happy email because we get a lot of those too. We don't read all of them, but we got this one recently, and I wanted to share it with both of you. And this one's from Ivan. And he says, my 5, almost 6-year-old just went from learn to play to our local rec team this last fall. And as a dad and adult league goalie, God bless you for that, I got the urge to get all my coaching stuff done, which for those of you who don't know, it's a lot of stuff. All right. And it has been a pure joy working with these kids and the other coaches as we begin our youth hockey life. One of the other coaches turned me onto your podcast, and I have loved every single episode. Not only are the hockey points spot on, but so are the life lessons for us and the kids. Thank you again. Please keep up the great work. I'm looking forward to listening to many more of your podcasts. That's from Ivan. That's a beautiful message, Ivan. We appreciate it.
Ivan, we appreciate you. Keeps us inspired. Thank you.
Right. And we appreciate the coaches that keep forwarding these links to anybody they think would like them, need them, want them. And I think it's it's great that I just love that word of mouth, or hey, you should listen to these guys, they're full of crap, or hey, I really liked what they had to say. Whatever that message is. I mean, it's just talking hockey and having an opportunity to understand different perspectives is great, because I think we all three of us have been around so many different arenas and rinks and levels of hockey, and great parents and crazy parents, and me personally, I've been a crazy parent and a great parent. I think I've run the gamut of my emotional roller coaster as a sport parent. So I think it's so I think it's great that other people are listening and chiming in and using using this platform as a resource.
Well,
Right.
I'll say this.
I too have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. Fortunately, most of it has been good. I could say that honestly.
Well, it's going to be good if you're around, Christie. You just bring a smile to everybody's face. And I will say, and Mike said it, a great way to support the show, aside from your 5-star review wherever you're listening, is to share an episode. If you listen to an episode of our show and you think that was really great, share it with a friend. That is one of the greatest ways to help us continue to grow and help us on our journey, as we have grown quite a bit over the last year. But I think I'm going to end this one there. I should also mention, we just really appreciate all the supportive emails we get. We get a lot of them. People just thanking us or saying that this episode really stood out to me. That's why we do it. It really is why we do it. It's why we started the show. And it's really wonderful to be in a place where really weekly we're getting these emails from people and fans around the world, our hockey family, friends around the world. That's why we said that from the very first episode. But this has been great. So that's going to do it for this episode. Another mailbag episode. Again, if you want to submit a question, comment, anything, team@ourkidsplayhockey.com. You can email audio, you can email words, whatever you want. We'll get it on the air as soon as we can. But that's going to do it for this episode of Our Kids Play Hockey, powered by NHL Sense Arena. Remember, you can see or listen to all of the episodes at ourkidsplayhockey.com. For Mike Benelli and Christie Casciano Burns, I'm Lee Elias. We'll see you on the next edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Skate on, everybody.